while I'm in San Diego, it's probably 8 years into my career, I get to a point where I'm like, for the first time in my life, I felt like I wasn't working towards something. And I always want to be the best. And so when I got to San Diego, I trained there. And for the first time in my life, I was like, okay, what's next? And I was like looking around the room and I'm like, fuck, like they have a mandatory retirement at age 56. And these folks, when they retire, like they don't look healthy. They look fucking like people are overweight. They got bad food in there. People are stressed out. I mean, it's one of the highest stress jobs in America. So this is the crazy part, Brad. A lot of these guys would retire and like within 6 months, they'd be dead.
You were on the Bradley podcast. And I heard you, and you were talking about boutique hotels. And I thought, fuck, this is a really smart idea. And the way I started to think about it was, it's like buying short-term rentals on steroids. That's the way I thought about it. So you've got these short-term rentals, so people coming in, into the boutique hotel, staying a couple of nights, staying a night, staying, maybe a little bit longer than that, and then they're gone. You remake the room, you bring somebody in. And you've got these people that are currently managing and owning these hotels that are aging. They've had them for a while. The property's a little tired. They don't have them marketed properly. They're not on VRBO. They're not on Airbnb, and just terrible management. And you're buying these things, these assets at a low price, bringing value in, redoing them, and building value there with an eventual exit plan. And so I was listening to this and I thought, man, this is really, really smart. And I've been in real estate for a long time and I'm always looking to diversify, but I like to stay in the real estate genre. And I reach out to you. And from the moment that I connected with you, I was like, this is a real guy. I really like this.
And for anyone listening, I think the importance of this, what you're alluding to here, Brad, is like, we connected through a third-party podcast.
We did.
It wasn't your podcast. It wasn't mine. And we connected through a third-party podcast because of the story that was portrayed there. And I believe you stayed at one of the hotels, the Black Sands Inn, which was the Inn of the Lost. No, what was it? Shoot, I forgot what it was called when we bought it. But anyhow, you had stayed there 5-6 years ago.
Yep.
And was it that story that triggered you to reach out?
Yeah, I actually, when you said you were buying your first hotel, and this is before you had your fund. So you would, I think you would just raise money,
Correct.
Basically like private money loans to get the property.
Correct.
But I heard you say Shelter Cove, and I was like, ding, ding, ding. I remember traveling in my RV up to the Redwoods with my family for Thanksgiving. And where we were in a little town called Benbow. And from there, I think it's only like 40-minute drive to Shelter Cove and then to Eureka and all these things. It was kind of centralized. And so we took a day and we went to Shelter Cove. And when you go through, you know this, obviously, you've been there numerous times, but when you go through kind of the forest area and you pop out, there's this flat kind of area, this small, but there's an airstrip. So there's an airstrip in the middle of this small town. You're on a bluff. There's a lighthouse. You got the just ocean as far as you can see, and it's just a beautiful view. And we spent the day there. And what I did notice was there were a couple of really tired hotels.
Yes.
And I was like, and I didn't stay there, by the way. I didn't stay there, but we went there for the day, and I was like, who would stay in a place like this? It's gorgeous. There needs to be something nicer, and there wasn't anything nicer. So when I heard that, I thought, this is really, really smart.
Yeah, I've only flown in there. I've never drove in, but you're right. It's the oddest place. You land in this little airstrip, and this airstrip is like in this middle of the town, and you come off of the runway, and then there's like cliffs with ocean views and some hotels.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time going up there was with the seller of this property, and it was called the Tides Inn before we bought it and rebranded to the Black Sands Inn. But I remember going up there, it was Monday night, and this owner had owned it. It was a 2005 built property, 10 units, right on the beach. And the owner had owned it for 18 years, him and his wife. That was the only piece of real estate they had ever owned. And they had lost, they took a loss every single year that they owned it. They had never exceeded $180,000 in gross revenue. And I remember going up there on a Monday afternoon. We fly in with the seller because the seller was going to finance the property. And the seller lives in San Francisco, the Bay Area. And so we took a commercial flight. This is me and my old partner, Mike, at the time. We took a commercial flight on Southwest up to San Jose.
Yep.
And then we take a 10-minute Uber ride over to Palo Alto Airport. I'll never forget this. And we get in the back of a single-engine turboprop. and it's this yellow plane. It's a seller's buddy, and he piles in like 3, 4 of his buddies in there with like surfboards and like, hey, we're gonna go up there. He's like, you guys come up. We'll throw you a free room. Check out the hotel. And we can talk. We can talk numbers. And so we go up there. I just remember thinking it was the oddest thing. He's like bringing all his buddies up there. His buddies are telling me on the plane, like, yeah, like owner brings us up there all the time. We just hang out, like, have fun. We go surfing and just hang. And so I remember thinking like automatically that this seller is not really approaching this as a business. It was almost like it's just a place for him to hang out with his buddies, right? And so we go up there. Then he's got an innkeeper, and the innkeeper's taken up not one of the 10 units, but 2 of the 10 units.
Wow.
And this innkeeper's it's a husband and wife, and there's no one at the hotel. There's one room occupied out of the 10 on a Monday night. And, you know, as you alluded to, it's very rural up there. There's not a lot of people. And so my first impression was like, dude, I told Mike, I was like, I don't think we're going to make this happen. And we toured the area, and what really triggered us to buy the deal, gave us the confidence to move forward, was meeting the innkeeper directly next door. There was another hotel directly next door called the Oceanfront Inn. Also,
And that one's still there?
Still there. And to this date, I've built a phenomenal relationship with the owners. They've been in the hotel game for quite some time. They're getting close to retirement. And so I told them, I said, hey, when you guys are ready, I would like to buy that hotel. But that said, what gave us the confidence to move forward ultimately was I went and knocked on the door next door at the Oceanfront Inn, and the innkeeper came out. Her name is Jennifer. Shout out to Jennifer. And I was just honest, you know. I was just like, hey, you know, live in San Diego, real estate investor looking to pick up this hotel directly next door. She had known that it had been on the market, and she was like, I was like, looking for any information that you can give us about the area, about the property next door. And she was like, oh, man, I've been up here for, 12 years. She goes, I know the managers over there. She goes, I know the housekeepers. I can tell you everything you want to know about that hotel. I got all the stories, all the tea for you. She's like, as a matter of fact, she's like, why don't you come back tonight after dinner? She's like, I'm not a fan of the property managers, but why don't you come out after dinner? And she's like, I'll show you everything. I was like, okay, what kind of drinks can we bring in? She's like, I love Corona. So we picked her up a 6-pack of Corona, had dinner with the property managers up there and the seller at the Tides Inn. And it was kind of the oddest dinner because we were looking at buying the property, and the innkeepers there, husband and wife, they're staying in 2 units, and they got an ocean view. Like this is their home. And so their biggest question is like, hey, are we going to keep them on, right? And at this point, we had like an accepted like LOI, but we wanted to tour the property before we put it under contract.
Yeah.
And so they kind of knew that we were going to be the next owners, and so they're trying to feel us out. And so it's kind of an uncomfortable dinner.
Okay. This was your very first hotel that you purchased, right?
This is the first one.
Okay.
Up until this point, we're doing multifamily, and I was in the Airbnb game.
Yeah. So I do want to go back to that later, but I'm just picturing, you said you ate dinner in the area there, and I know that there was just this little crappy burger joint with like screen doors and like, where did you eat? There was not.
It was not at a restaurant.
Okay.
The
gotcha.
innkeeper, what are their names? I can't remember their names, but anyhow,
Okay.
husband and wife, they're like,
Went to their place.
early mid-50s couple, and their place, they cook dinner.
Got it.
Right.
Okay.
And so we're all just, hanging out, eating dinner. And they like brought it up at dinner. They were like, hey, like, this is our livelihood. Like, what are you guys going to do with us?
Mm-hmm.
And they're giving us all the reason. And we knew like, hey, our model is the remote management model, right? And so the reason I pivoted to the boutique hotel is I already had the STR management arm. We are managing short-term rentals, stuff that I own, but also stuff for third-party owners. A lot of our investors own short-term rentals. We manage them for them as well. And we already had the systems and processes in place to manage. And so I thought, well, what if we buy a small boutique hotel and manage the hotel remotely, free the on-site management, which allows us to bring the innkeeper suite online for additional revenue. Often the innkeeper suite is like the largest and the nicest unit on the property.
Right.
And then in addition to that, we save the payroll of having an on-site manager, right? So the $60K the on-site manager is making annually, that now drops to the bottom line. And because boutique hotel is commercial real estate and not residential real estate like a single-family Airbnb would be, we can now directly force our appreciation if you would. So anyways, that's our model. And after dinner, we go over to grab a 6-pack of Corona, bring it over to Jennifer, and literally she's like cooking food. She's like bringing hors d'oeuvres out for Mike and I. and just completely opens up. She's like, at one point of the night, she starts crying because she's like, has so many like emotional backstory conversations and stories with the current managers. And she's like, yeah, the managers have been stealing from the owner for like 7 years. They were going and stealing all the tips because, like people leave tips for the housekeepers. They would go and steal all the tips from the housekeepers. They would take other jobs in town. And they would manage like the bookings. And so whenever there was a booking, they didn't want to do same day turns. And so they would block the calendar the day before check-in and then also the day after checkout.
No wonder they were losing money.
Yeah, they're losing a lot of money. And so anyways, to put it in perspective, the hotel that we were looking to buy, they were doing $180,000 per year. And they had never exceeded that, ever. And a good month for them was like July was the busiest month, and they would do $20,000 gross. And that was like a great month. And to put in perspective, the hotel directly next door, Jennifer, to also 10 rooms, smaller rooms. The one we were looking at had like large living rooms, kitchens, fireplaces, and that sort of thing. This particular one was not renovated either. And they were doing $650,000 a year. She's literally showing us all their freaking books.
Wow, big difference.
Yeah, and she showed us like 2 years worth of books. And I was like, damn. And so that was what ultimately gave us the confidence to move forward on the deal. That trip was successful, though, because one, had we not gone up there and met Jennifer, we would have never bought that deal. But two, I was able to build a relationship with the seller. His name's Brian. Shout out to Brian and Julie. And Brian and Julie, like, they still have a note on that property. Seller finance, great folks. And they ended up coming up in some terms, providing better terms than we initially negotiated. So that was great. And yeah, they're great. The one thing I'll say real quick, Brad, about seller financing that a lot of people don't allude to is, one, it's great to secure seller financing. You can negotiate on down payment, a low interest rate, and all that sort of thing, which is great. But one thing that I don't hear a lot of people talk about is when you go pick up a property from a mom and pop seller and they provide the financing and you do something to their property that they've never seen done before. Like we took that property from $180 to over $600,000 in revenue, right, in 12 months. And we essentially tripled the gross revenue. Yep. And we took the value, the thing appraised for, we bought it for 1.5 and some change.
What a deal.
Yeah, bought it for 1.5 and some change in August of 22. August of 23, it appraised at 4.5 and
how much did you put into it?
We put about 450, 500-ish into it. Yeah. But what they don't say is, when you go and take a property like that the seller wasn't able to do for 18 years of ownership, and you show them what you're able to do to their property, and also, you build the trust by paying the debt service on time every single month. When you go to pay back that note, that seller is now going to become your largest investor, or is going to give you that money back to go fund another deal in the form of debt.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's something people don't talk about.
They don't. You know what? Now that you say that out loud, I had a very similar situation in a commercial building I bought that was seller financed. And, we rehabbed it, did the whole thing, and wanted to refinance and recapitalize. And he got really angry about it. He got really angry that we were going to pay him off. Because I think that's the one side that people don't talk about on seller financing or subject to.
Yes.
Is why would somebody want to do that? Well, they don't want the tax hit. And they'd rather have the revenue, and they need to invest it anyway. So why not carry a note secured by a property you already know intimately, so you know it's a good collateral, and then just receive a monthly stipend on it. You'd be looking to do that anyway in an investment. And so that's the incentive for somebody who's owned a property for a long time, has a lot of equity, may have this cash hit for taxes, and why not just carry a note instead? Yeah,
and I think the key there with what you said is, if for anyone listening to this, if they're trying to target sellers that would make great candidates to provide seller financing, it's typically a seller that's older, that's going to retire, and they prefer the ongoing cash flow in retirement, the reduced tax burden, but most importantly, they're not going to be rolling their proceeds into another opportunity, right? Because they're closer to the end of the game. They're not just getting warmed up; they're cooling down. and so the cool thing about boutique hotels is it's estimated that 25% of the boutique hotels out there are owned by retiring mom and pop sellers.
Yep.
And these sellers bought their hotels 30, 40 years ago on seller financing, so they're already expecting to exit via seller financing. And so I think there's a huge opportunity right now in this space.
I totally agree with you. And I think a lot of people do, which is why you're building a community around it.
Yeah.
Especially those that are already doing STRs. They understand the model. So That's great. I want to kind of go back for a minute because a lot
By
of
the
people
way,
don't know
real quick, this is this Filipino coffee or is it
Vietnamese.
The Vietnamese coffee is really good.
It's
it's
very
fucking.
good.
I love a
and
good dark
very
roast.
strong. If you finish that by the time we're done with the podcast, you're going to be able to do anything you want. You can go work out. You can do whatever. You're going to be hyped up.
Consider it done. I'm gonna finish it. Then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Challenge accepted.
It's very good. What's your team member's name that made it?
Gloria.
Shout out to Gloria. So good.
Right on. All right. So a lot of people don't know your story and how you got into real estate. So I want to kind of take us back a little bit. You grew up in San Clemente, California, and then you went to Cal State San Marcos, right? You got your BA degree in what?
Economics.
Okay, in economics. And then what? You moved to Oklahoma City?
Yeah, so I literally was selling cell phones in college. My first job was actually at a movie theater.
Okay.
And that was in high school. And I got to college, I was 18. And I was like kind of a shy kid growing up. And I was uncomfortable to like talk to strangers and that sort of thing. And I was 18 and like my first job in college was selling cell phones at the mall, North County Mall, at a kiosk, selling singular wireless cell phones. And they were like, yo, you're going to have to talk to people to be successful. And I was like, holy fuck, I got to go talk to strangers. I remember it being uncomfortable, but I was forced to talk to strangers. And I actually like grinded and I hustled and I kind of like figured it out. I ended up getting to a point to where I felt comfortable. It's all about the reps and the at-bats. But anyways, long story short, became good at that and then went on to sell cars for Massey Nissan down in Kearney Mesa, San Diego.
Okay.
And that was fun. And I was like, fuck, I love sales.
Yeah.
I fucking love sales. And I became good at that. And I was like, fuck, I want to, when I get out of college, I want to go sell commercial real estate. Because I knew with sales, I was like, who makes the most commissions out of all the sales? And it's commercial real estate agents. That's like one of the highest commissions that you can make. And so I interviewed with CB Richard Ellis and Grubb and Ellis right when I graduated college. This is 2008. And as your audience knows, the entire fucking economy was crashing. It was probably the worst time to get a job or graduate from college in the history of anything. And I remember interviewing at CB Richard Ellis and Grubb and Ellis. These are the two commercial real estate brokerages. And CBRE is still around today, actually.
Yep.
And they were like, hey, we love your hustle. We think you'd be great at this, but this is not the best time to get into the industry. They pulled their internship positions, and I found myself on the car lot at Massey Nissan wondering, like, what the fuck am I going to do with my life? And at the time, I was kind of partying a lot. I had an addiction to Xanax, and I was like just selling cars on a car lot. I had already finished school, and I was kind of like at a place to where I was like kind of comfortable, but I knew that wasn't like that wasn't going to be my thing. And so I was like literally just like taking Xanax and like selling cars on a car lot. And then I was like still living in a house with my college buddies up in North County, and like I would just go home, and like they were always like, I go home, they'd be like playing beer pong, having girls over, partying all the time. And that was kind of my lifestyle for a little bit. And I did that after college for probably 6 months. And then I stumbled across a job as an air traffic controller.
What do you mean stumbled across?
So check this out. So my dad was a pilot for American Airlines.
Oh.
And he was like, hey, the FAA is hiring air traffic controllers with no experience. And I didn't know anything about it. And, you know, me being in sales, I wanted to sell commercial real estate. I didn't want to fucking go work for the government.
Yeah.
And all I knew was like a federal job. And I was like, fuck, like I was like partying. I was like, I don't want to fucking work for the government. You know what I mean? I'm going to get drug tested.
Right.
Yeah, it was the last thing I wanted to do. But I applied. Like there was no jobs in the job market. And I was like, I just knew that the car thing wasn't going to be my thing. So I applied. And sure enough, they called me. And actually, it's a fun fact. It was actually up here. They sent me up to Santa Clarita.
Oh, okay.
For a fucking general test. They said, hey, come up here and take a test. It's a general test, nothing you study for. And it's like multiple choice. But if you come up here and pass it, like we'll offer you a job. And so I came up here. I remember taking a Xanax bar before I took it. And I took this test. And shit luck, I scored really high. And they called me like literally like 3 weeks later, and they said, hey, like you scored really high. We'd love to hire you. We have a position for you. Can you start in 2 weeks out in Oklahoma City?
So you didn't study for this
fuck.
test, just to clarify. Like you just was this a cognitive test? Like
Yeah.
how did you score high? What were the questions like?
Yeah, there was a multiple choice portion. I want to say like 120 questions. And a lot of it was like little scenarios. So like, air traffic control is like a lot of like video game stuff. It's like a lot of like computing math in your head and that sort of thing, a lot of scenarios. And so you're looking at the screen and they might say, hey, like, these are like your 3 different objects. One of the objects is going to go this way. This other object's going to go this way. And then you have something that's going to come this way that's going to be interfering. And the goal is to like end over in this corner of the map. Which way would you go? Stuff like that.
Okay.
And then like math questions, right? So like shit that you wouldn't even study for, like weird fucking shit.
Well, it just reminds me, like growing up, I remember all the little like riddles we would have about, well, there's a freight train traveling at 110 miles an hour going north. That's what
some
I
of that shit
about.
too.
Okay.
Some of that stuff too. And so it's like a little bit of like physics, a little bit of like geometry, and a little bit of math, and then a little bit of just like common sense, right?
Yeah.
Oh, and then there was some questions to like make sure you're not crazy.
Okay.
So like they would ask you like, like have you ever like wanted to kill yourself?
Got it.
Stuff like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So anyways, it was like a full day of testing. Maybe it was more than 120 questions.
Wow.
But anyways, like somehow I remember like taking a Xanax bar before this test, and I didn't take it seriously, and somehow I scored like almost a perfect score. And so then they were like, hey, like we want to hire you. We have a position for you in Oklahoma City. If you can pass a drug test,
That's how you wound up there.
we'll get you out there in 2 weeks. And at the time I was partying a lot.
Yeah.
And so I remember doing like fucking like detox, all this stuff.
Oh, shit.
And somehow I passed the drug test and went out there. And I packed my car up and I literally I had one suitcase, one bag. I had this little 2-seater Nissan 350Z.
Wow.
Little 2-seater, no back seat.
Nothing. There's no room in there.
Yeah, I put one bag in it. This is in 2009. And I remember just like driving across I-40. The first stop, I drove from San Diego to Albuquerque. That was my first stop. And then from Albuquerque, I drove through, what's the north part of Texas? There's like Amarillo, Texas, I-40.
Oh, okay.
I drove through Amarillo. I remember I stopped there, had lunch at this like fucking, this like steak place, this like steak shop. A lot of good steakhouses in Oklahoma and in Texas.
Like cows.
Yeah. So anyways, in 2 days, I got all the way to Oklahoma City. And I remember thinking like during my drive, I'm like, this is a whole new chapter in my life. And I ended up doing it for 11 fucking years, too.
Oh, I didn't realize it had been that long.
Yeah,
Well, that
11
makes
years.
sense because you saved up money in your 401k. I want to go pause there for a minute and just go back a second because I don't know what a Xanax bar is. I know Xanax, the pills, but first of all, what is a bar? How did you get addicted to that? And then how did you break the addiction?
My advice for someone selling their home: number 1, do it yourself and save. Number 2, use HomePie.
HomePie makes it easy to buy or sell without an agent. I can list a home in minutes and start receiving offers right away from buyers.
When we discovered that we didn't have to lose $40,000 in agent commission just to upsize to a larger home, it was an obvious choice.
List your home for free at homepie.com. Keep your piece of the pie.
How did you get addicted to that? And then how did you break the addiction?
Dude, it's a great question. I didn't have basically anxiety, or it's the doctors will prescribe Xanax to people that have anxiety. Okay, so if you have high anxiety, a doctor will prescribe you Xanax. I never had anxiety. I started taking it for fun, recreational use. I had a buddy in college who worked at a pharmacy, and so he would literally sell me bottles straight from the pharmacy with 100 Xanax bars. Now, when a doctor prescribes you a Xanax bar, they will start you on a very small dosage. So
is a bar a pill? Is that?
It's a pill.
Okay, it's just a synonymous term.
Yeah, but to put in perspective, a bar is 2 milligrams.
Okay.
And for someone that goes to the doctor and says, hey, I have anxiety, like I want to get on Xanax, they'll start you on like a 0.25 dosage and then work you up to like a 0.5. And a Xanax bar is 2 milligrams. And so to put in perspective, I went from just taking it for fun casually to like after 2 months, I was full-blown addicted. And I would take a full bar in the morning just to get out of bed. And I would go like work on the car lot, and I had some classes and stuff like that. This is like my last semester at college, where I was kind of like just taking 2 classes, but I was working, at the car lot a lot. And I would take one in the morning just to get out of bed. I would go do like my classes, and I would go to the work. And then after I got off work, I would take another bar, right? And
Because
so now I'm 4
off?
milligrams in for the day.
Which
Yeah,
sounds like
I was
a
just
lot.
taking it to feel normal at that point. and then if I wanted to go out that night and like party, I wanted to
maybe
I wanted
6
to
a day?
I wanted to feel really good, so I would take another 1 to 2 bars if I went out
Wow.
that night. So we're talking 6 to 8 milligrams every 24 hours of Xanax, which you can imagine what that does.
That
to your
doesn't
head.
sound good.
It fucks you up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
What did it make
I
you
was-
feel like?
So like you don't have any worries. Everything's very chill. Give you a little bit more confidence because you're not worried about little things. And I remember, well, one thing about them, if you take them and go out and drink, you will black out. You will not remember a thing.
And that happened to you?
All the time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, all the time.
Wow. Which
there
is why I
was-
found some photos online of you that you've probably never seen. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I was young and all sorts of crazy stuff.
Wow.
And here's
So
the thing.
how did you
Here's-
break
here-
it? And
Well, real
how-
quick,
okay.
this is important for like anyone listening. That maybe has a struggle with addiction. I thought because like you're exposed to all these hard drugs. You go to college, people are gonna have cocaine. They're gonna have like what's the new one that everyone takes these days? 2C. All this shit. The reality is like you can't control your environment, right? Especially when you're a young age. At our age now, we can remove certain people
Sure.
and that sort of thing. But at a young age, you're kind of more just rolling with the punches, right? And a lot of people try to fit in and that sort of thing. And I think that I was one of those people where I always wanted to fit in. And my friends that I looked up to at that time, they were all like always partying and on drugs. And so I thought, like this is not a hard drug. It's not cocaine, all stuff. This is a prescription pill, so it's got to be relatively healthy. But out of all the drugs that I've done, experimented with in my lifetime, Xanax hands down was the most challenging to come off of. Like it was fucking the roughest thing ever. So I remember when I got the call to go out there, I was like, fuck, I got to stop.
Yeah.
And so I ended up ultimately coming down off of that stuff just like on my own, weeding myself off of it because I knew if I said something or I went to like rehab, I wouldn't be working there. No, yeah. They do like a lot of strict background testing and checks and all that sort of thing. And so I just like weeded myself off of it. And I remember for 2 months straight, I did not want to talk to anyone. I had sweaty hands. Time went by really slow. Food tasted like shit. No sex drive. Like literally nothing made you happy. Nothing. And the only thing that kind of saved me was like each day I remember would get like 1% better than the previous day. And each week would get, probably 5-6% better than the previous week. And so that was kind of what kept me going. And, after 2 months, I started to feel a lot better. And then 3 months later, I really started to feel normal. And now obviously I feel great now, but I never took a Xanax again. And I did take one like 4.5 years ago when I got my LASIK procedure.
Okay.
And they give you like a Xanax. They give you a Xanax before you go in.
Sure.
And I remember taking
Not
it.
uncommon.
Yeah, I remember taking it. My brain recognized it right away, and it like triggered this flashback of the past. Because I remember like whenever if you're addicted to Xanax and you get to like it starts to wear off after like 20 hours. And so you get to around that like 19, 20 hour mark and you're running low on like prescription or like more pills, you start to like get this like crazy tremendous anxiety. I remember that. And you just
Like
all you
panic
can
almost.
think of all you can think about is like, oh my God, I got to get more.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I've never had an addiction like that, but I'm glad that you kind of brought it up for people that do, because what they have to understand is that it's not abnormal. People do get addicted, but you can get through it and get to the point where you don't need to feel like you need it all the time, and you can have that same feeling, that high feeling that you need just from life.
Yes.
And being around people that elevate you. And, we talk about this all the time.
For sure.
Really protecting the circle around you. And if you're around the people that are not elevating you and you don't get that feeling just from them, then you need to change your people.
Dude, it's so true, man. It's so true. People get seizures from coming down on Xanax and all that sort of stuff. But to your point, the circle is everything.
Yeah.
You can't grow with people that don't like how growth looks on you.
All right, so you went to Oklahoma City, you drove out there, and 11 years you're working this job that really wasn't what you wanted to do. You're saving money. You got money in a 401k that I'm guessing you got a match for and all that sort of thing. And then what was the trigger that said, I'm done, and you cashed in your 401k?
Yeah, so I go to Oklahoma City training. I go to 6 years in Palmdale, which is probably, 45 minutes from here?
About, depends on traffic.
High desert.
Yeah.
I don't know how I did 6 years there, but anyways, and then I transferred to San Diego, 5 years down there, and while I'm in San Diego, it's probably 8 years into my career. I get to a point where I'm like, for the first time in my life, I felt like I wasn't working towards something. As a child, we're always like, we're in school, right? You go to like elementary school, and we're like learning new things, and we're playing sports, Little League baseball. I played basketball, I skateboarded growing up, and I was always very competitive. And then it's like high school, and like college, okay. And then after college, it's like, okay, what's the next thing? And when I was in sales, like selling cell phones or like selling cars, I always wanted to be number one. I always wanted to be like top at sales. I always wanted to be the best, and I was just always very competitive. Yeah. And same thing with air traffic control. I was like, okay, training, and then I always wanted to be the best controller. Like people would fucking dodge traffic when it got busy. I'd be like, put me in there. Like I want to fucking rip it, And I always want to be the best. And so when I got to San Diego, I trained there, and for the first time in my life, I was like, okay, what's next? I accomplished everything that I was supposed to accomplish, and I was like looking around the room, and I'm like, fuck, like, is this really what I'm going to be doing for the next 20 years until I'm like, 56 years old? They have a mandatory retirement at age 56, and these folks, when they retire, like, they don't look healthy. They look fucking like people are overweight. They got bad food in there. People are stressed out. I mean, it's one of the highest stress jobs in America.
You're saying that I'm picturing the guys from the movie Airplane.
Yeah.
Where they're smoking and they're having their coffee every day. Probably a very stressful job.
Yeah. And so I'm looking around the room, and I'm like seeing like these folks they don't look good. They don't look healthy. They look, 56, they look like they're 76 when they retire. Yeah. And that's all they know. I mean, we're talking big dark buildings with no windows. And that's their only friend circle.
Wait, you're not looking out in the tower over the
So you have Street. Those are air traffic controllers as well. So
this is different.
To clarify, air traffic control, you got your airport towers, right? So those are the folks that work at the tower at the airport. They'll control the runway, the taxiways. They'll clear planes to take off, clear to land. And they'll maybe control a 3 to 5 mile radius of the actual airport. Once you take off, if you're flying like American Airlines or Southwest out of like, let's just say LAX to New York, you're gonna, as soon as you take off, that controller is at the tower is gonna switch you to approach control, which is like a radar controller, and then eventually you get switched over to a center controller.
That makes sense,
right? And so, anyways, that's tower controllers. But they put the people at the tower are the ones that can't pass the radar. The radar is that's
the complex
that's the
stuff.
game. That's the game, and the radar controllers get paid a lot more because it's a lot more. You got to be a lot sharper.
Yeah.
So a lot more going on, and so the radar, you're talking, when it's slow, 5 airplanes, but when it's busy, 25, 30 airplanes, and you got a headset on, and you're talking to the pilots. Some planes are climbing out, some planes are coming in to land. You got planes transitioning through. You got slow planes. You got emergencies. You got weather, mountains, terrain. And each plane is going to a different area, right? Yeah. And so sometimes you might be sequencing for final, and you'll have 8 or 9 planes coming in from different areas, all landing at the same airport.
Wow.
And now you got to turn them, descend them, and all this sort of stuff. So sequencing. So anyways, I digress. Where are we going with this?
Well, I was just saying your 401k.
Oh, yeah.
So what was the trigger?
Yes.
That you said, you know what, I'm done. You said, I'm done with this.
Yes.
I'm not going anywhere in life. At least not where you wanted to go.
Yeah. So
and you didn't want to be a 56-year-old that looked like a 76-year-old.
Yes, exactly. So I'm like, what the fuck? Like, these guys look so fucking old. And a lot of these folks, this is the crazy part, Brad. A lot of these guys would retire, and like within 6 months they'd be dead.
Ooh.
I swear to God.
Not healthy.
Like I can count on 2 hands how many people I know personally that within a year they were dead. Because that's all I knew, and they would become alcoholics. They would just sit at home and like do nothing. They'd be depressed after they retired, and I'm like, fuck, I don't want to do that. And so I was like, what's this next thing for me? And I overheard a coworker in the break room, and his name's Mike Ty, fucking awesome dude. And anyway, so Mike was like, hey, I just closed on a fourplex in Cleveland, and I overheard it, and I was like, I'm like, how the fuck did you do that? And I was like, teach me how you did that. And he goes, go read this blue book by Brandon Turner on real estate investing. And he said, go listen to this book called go listen to this podcast, the Bigger Pockets podcast.
Yep.
And I literally, there's my fan right there.
Hang on a minute.
Yeah.
I have something up here I wanted to see because that was your first. No, that.
There you go.
Hang
Yeah,
on.
look at that. What date is that? What date is that?
Hang on. I gotta find it. There's a shoot. Where is it? Maybe it's here. No. I had your first. You had an 11 unit. It disappeared. Oh, well. You had an 11 unit in Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. That was your first one, right?
That was the first one.
In
So
November 2019.
that was the very first one.
So-
And the crazy part is like, do the math. That's not even 5 years ago.
No, it isn't. That's
even 5
that's
years
why I want to talk about it. You've
crazy.
been on a rocket ship. So November of 2019, you buy this 11 unit in Cincinnati. By the way, you didn't live in Cincinnati.
No.
So your buddy Mike, he's talking about his fourplex.
Yep.
He says, show me how. You start reading. Let's talk very specifically about how you bought that first 11 unit. Because what people don't know is for residential property, that's 1 to 4 family. So it's up to a 4 unit. It's completely different qualifying than it is for commercial. For a loan for commercial, it's
Yes.
5+ units,
Sure.
commercial buildings, and all sorts of other things. When you're talking about something that's over 4 units, the property qualifies for that loan. The cash flow qualifies for that loan. So did you know this from your reading? And then how did you actually do that? Obviously, you cashed in your 401k. That was to help with the down payment. But how did you actually go about doing that? For those that are ready and want to start their first one.
Yeah. So there's a lot that goes into this. It's not like I just woke up and like fucking had all this real estate. Like I overheard that conversation in the break room January of 2019. I closed on that first deal, which is 11 unit building in Cincinnati, November of 2019. So it was literally 9 months straight of me doing nothing. But I broke up with my girlfriend that I was living with at the time. She was like not supportive of this new real estate venture. She felt like it was taking away from our time together. And so I split that off. I cut everything out of my life that wasn't aligned with the goal. And I just became fucking obsessed. Like I stopped going out. I fucking stopped partying. I literally didn't do anything but work 56 hours a week, 6 days a week, overtime. And on the way to work, during my breaks, after work, all I did was fucking study, read books. I started listening to podcasts. I went to fucking networking events before I even owned any fucking real estate. And
You were
I
obsessed.
I was fucking obsessed. I was like, I'm gonna fucking do this. Like rain or shine, like I'm gonna fucking figure this out. And that's all I fucking did. Like I was up till 2 a.m. every single night, just like fucking just studying and like looking at deals and underwriting deals and just anything I get my hands on, I was fucking on it. And I underwrote probably like 500 deals before I like ended up buying that one because it's like the first one. You know, you want to make sure you make the right decision. But anyways, long story short, the only money I had in my name then, Brad, was a fucking 401k. Like that is all I had.
How
in my
much
name.
did you have in there?
I had about $340,000
Over 11 years.
over
so you saved
11
that.
years. And that's that one good thing that like came financially of the air traffic control thing was I maxed out my 401k every single year. And the max when I started was like 16, 17. And each year it would go up like $500. But the company, the FA would match.
100%.
So they would match a certain percentage up to the first 5%. So I think it was 1-to-1 for the first whatever. I know what
Yeah,
it
it's
came out
probably
to.
like 100% for the first 2%, then
Yes.
then 80, then 50.
Then it
or
was
something
50%
like that.
of like
Yep.
3 to 5 or something like that.
Yep.
But I ended up maxing it out. So it was like 17, then it was like 17.5, then it was 18. It go up $500 in terms of the max.
Mm-hmm.
And they would put in like another like 5 or 6 grand was all said and done. So on average, I was putting in like 23 to 25 a year, right? And so it grows, it grows. It doesn't grow as fast as they tell you it grows, but it grows. And so I had about like 340 in there ish when I was making this move, and that's the only money I had to my name. And so I cashed out the 401k. And
when you do that,
everyone,
you pay a tax penalty. You pay a penalty, and then you pay tax on that as income.
yes, you pay 10% penalty to the Fed.
That's right.
You pay 2.5% penalty to the state of California, and then the rest of it gets taxed as ordinary income.
So you probably wound up with 55, 60% of that.
Yes, but you know what I did? I didn't pay the federal taxes right then and there.
Okay.
When you cash it out, at least with the site that we use, their intermediary for the 401k was called TSP. So if you work for the government, most government or federal employees, it's called the Thrift Savings Plan, and that's the intermediary. Yeah. And so you can go online and do a hardship withdrawal. That's what I did. I get a hardship withdrawal, the financial withdrawal. They don't ask any questions, but I was like, it's your money at the end of the day, right? And so pull this thing out, and they ask you, hey, do you want to pay the taxes on it now or no? And I said no.
Yeah.
And so I rolled all the tax money into these deals.
Got it.
And then later, because you're not going to pay the taxes until the next year.
Yeah, and then you
And you get an
extend
extension.
it, so you can get
Yes.
close to 2 years out of it.
So
just
I
with the regular
ended
extensions.
up getting extension, and then when these deals refied and I started like doing other stuff, that's when I used the money to pay it back. Now, everyone told me it was too risky. Coworkers told me it was too risky. Friends and family told me it was too risky. They told me it's too risky to go out of state to invest. They were like, "What the fuck are you doing buying an apartment building? You're gonna lose all your money, and you're gonna cash out your 401k. Like, you're fucking crazy." And everyone told me it's too risky, but I'm just very lucky that I didn't listen to anyone because I think a lot of people. I hear a lot of people, and I see a lot of people come to to my meetup, and they always like want to get into a real estate deal, but they end up getting talked out of it by their mom or their family member or like their spouse. And unfortunately, a lot of these people that are talking you out of it, they've never owned any real estate before. And so how is someone to talk me out of buying an 11-unit apartment building when they've never owned an apartment building before?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I think it's just fear, and different generations experience different things. If you were born in the late 90s and you saw your parents go through the crash in the 2008, that has an impression on you. And you're like, real estate bad, saving good. So I think a lot of that's just life experience. But look, everybody that's ever done something big does something everybody else isn't doing. And so you had this mindset where you're like, okay, I see my friend Mike did it. I've been reading, I've been studying, I'm just going to do it. So you take your 401k and did you put all of it in as a down payment on this 11 unit?
I put, no, I bought this, it was 11 unit property, I bought it for $350,000. I still own it today. I put 25% down and I put about $40,000 in a reno.
Okay.
So all in, I'm like, I don't know, $100 and something thousand. The rest of it, my team, and even hosted industry leaders like Grant Cardone on my podcast. Now I'm showing you how to master social media, podcasting, and brand building with proven strategies and a supportive network of business owners. Join a community that's just getting warmed up with 40 plus members and growing. So if you want to learn more to see if we can help you, visit the7figurecreator.com to book a free call with my team. Again, it's spelled like the number 7, figurecreator.com to book a free call with my team. Now back to the show. I took the rest of it and I put it into a 32-unit building that I also closed on in
December of 2009.
Yeah.
You had a little bit of a run there because I saw
Yeah.
December 2019, this 32 units in Indiana.
In Indiana.
Right?
Yep.
Totally different area.
Yep. And I bought another.
And then the same month, you buy that condo
No money
that's
down.
down in San Diego that
Yeah.
I stayed at because it's Airbnb now.
Yeah, still own it today.
In that same month.
Yeah.
And that closed on December 31st of 2008. So November 2019 and December 2019, you went all in.
Yeah, I did. And
You're
if
like,
you
"Fuck
think
it,
about
that's it."
the money that I had at that time, like I had $340,000 in a 401k after taxes and all that, a lot less. But if you think about what I bought from that was like probably the maximum I could have bought.
Yeah.
And I knew in December I knew that I wouldn't get that no money down loan through Navy Federal in the condo had they known about the other stuff. So I knew I had to kind of buy it at the same time before they knew about each other.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Very interesting. So look, because the condo, that's single family. You had to qualify for that.
Yeah.
That is something that you bought as your primary residence. I saw photos online where you had parties. You had Super Bowl parties there and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, that was a big transition for you in a very short, compact period of time. So for those other people that are out there thinking, because there's a lot of youth, they see it on TikTok, they go, I want to get into real estate, and they see the STR game, and they see all these things, and the lesson here is you just got to do it. Like there is a template, there is a blueprint, follow the blueprint.
Yeah.
And so you developed this blueprint. You said, I have saved money. And people could have saved in any way. They could have been working on a job. They could have had bar mitzvah money. Like there's all sorts of things, right? But decide you want to do it, really learn about it, immerse yourself, and then go for it. You're young. You'll recover.
Yeah.
Even if you lose your money on that, there's time to recover.
Yeah. Look, I was raised like this. Everyone told me from a young age to go to school, get good grades, go to college, get a job. And for the most part, that's what I did. And I invested in the 401k. I maxed it out for 11 years. And yeah, it grows, but it's never going to like truly make you wealthy. Like it's not, right? Let's just be honest.
No.
And at that time, everyone told me it's fucking too risky. Friends, family members, coworkers, like literally everyone and their mom told me not to do it. And I went from a $340,000 net worth to an 8-figure net worth in less than 5 years because I took that one risk. And so my biggest takeaway looking back is, yes, all those risks are real, so put some weight on them. But on the other side of a balance scale is another risk, and it's this. I could be 80 years old one day, laying in my bed, staring at the ceiling, kicking myself because I never fucking tried anything in life. How about that risk? That's a risk, too, that a lot of people don't allude to.
I agree, 100%. It's a good soundbite there. All right. Then, all right, so now you're in the game. You develop a company to manage your short-term rentals. You start acquiring short-term rentals. And we talked about your first boutique hotel. So you didn't have a fund at the time. You now, what do you have in total under management now?
80 million.
It is 80 million. Okay. Because I know when we were together last weekend, you were showing me the next property. And so I want to get updated on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
See if that's going to work out because you said you'd put that in my fund.
Yes.
But anyway, this is a huge growth over a short period of time. So then you start looking into how can I raise more money to be able to leverage, and not many people do this, and those that do and do it successfully can exponentially raise their net worth. And so you said, I'm going to put together a fund. It's called Summers Capital, and it's a boutique hotel fund. That's the first fund you put together. And I think you're either about to close it out or you're very close. That's an undertaking. That's a whole other learning curve. How did you get into that?
Yeah, so I'd done a few raises at this point in the multifamily side, and then we bought that first hotel that we alluded to at the top of the show. And we're buying a second hotel, and we're going to do a single asset syndication. And I just thought, you know what? Like, what if we did a fund? And talked to the SEC counsel. And at the time, like I had known a few people, Mikey Taylor is one of them, that had a fund. And everyone's telling me, like, it's the way to go. It just makes sense from a reporting standpoint. It's less reporting to investors. It's one set of investor distributions. It's one set of legal docs. Like, it's just a lot easier to scale. And so I thought, you know what, let's do it. And so just rolled it out. And I think that's how I've approached a lot of things in my life up to this point is like, hey, like, I'm down to try anything once if it's going to give us an opportunity to become a little bit better. And if it doesn't, then like we can pivot, and that's okay too. And so we tried it, and it ended up being like so good. Like, I love the fund model. I don't think I'll ever go back to the single asset stuff. It's just way too much work for just one property.
To raise money property by property.
That, but then it's like everything. It's like I said, it's the reporting, the distributions, like all this shit. And it's just way easier when you got a fund.
Yeah.
It's just way easier.
Put multiple properties in one fund. We talked about this earlier. I'm an investor. I put a big chunk of money in there.
Yeah.
And
we appreciate you, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
The girls on the team love you. Everyone in our investor community loves you, man. Like, you're a fucking stand-up dude. And I'm grateful to call you one of my good friends.
Oh, I appreciate that.
And your wife, Laura,
and
she is a fucking badass.
She is a badass. There's no question about that. Actually, let's pivot for a moment.
Yeah.
I want to finish that thought, and then we'll pivot for a moment because we talked about something off camera. He said, let's talk about it on camera.
You were telling me before we started recording, and I was like, let's save this for the podcast.
Yeah,
so
you did.
How did you and Laura meet?
Okay, so this is why I brought this up, because today you're here with Presley, and it was funny about 2 weeks ago, you broke it to everybody, and you said, guys.
On the mastermind call.
On the mastermind call. He goes, what were you exactly?
I said, for the first time in 5 years.
Yeah, no, but the way you said it was funny. You said, your boy Rich is
no longer single.
Is no longer single. I guess I think you said it a little differently. You said your boy Rich is no longer single, but it was something else you said, and I cracked up. I'm like, that's so funny. So I was asking you how you met Presley. And you started telling me this story, and you said, well, she was a bartender at this bar that I went to once. I'd probably never go back. So it was kind of a dive bar, I'm guessing. And I said, that's crazy. I said, because I met my wife 35 years ago or something like that, and she was a cocktail waitress at a bar. There was an underground bar that had opened up and was really only open for like 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. Because an underground bar is a bar that opens up and doesn't have all the permits and the licenses, right? And so, you kind of you hear about it word of mouth, whatever it is. Obviously, this is pre-internet, and everybody wants to go. And so, me and a bunch of buddies went there, a big group of friends, and you said, well, how'd you approach her? And so here's what I did. Okay, and during that time, like it was when you go out with your boys, it was all about how can you meet girls. You go into the clubs, and every night of the week there was a different club that popped off or a different bar that popped off. So this was kind of a new place, and we're like, let's all go. And we're sitting there, we're having some drinks, and she's the cocktail waitress for our area, and I'm like, holy smokes, like this is better than anybody I've ever seen before. First law of attraction, you got to be attracted.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I have a few words, whatever, not really nothing deep, and then I'm talking about her, and my brother goes, dude, just go up to her. She's at the bar right now. I'm like, okay. So I go up to, and I have a small chat with her, and she had never dated somebody she'd met at a bar. She never dated. She dated older guys. Like it was just, like I was so out of character.
What'd you say to her?
So I wanted to get her phone number. That's what we did. We just got phone numbers back then. So I didn't say anything. I took my business card. I had an auto detailing business back then.
Nice.
I took my business card. I flipped it over. I had a pen, and I did hangman with her. And I put her name at the top, which I had already gotten, Laura. And then I put brackets, and I put dash, or underline, dash, underline for a phone number.
Okay.
And I gave it to her
Oh my God.
to get her phone number.
That's how you did it.
That's how I did it.
And what'd she do?
She initially didn't give it. She was like, no, I don't. My brother closed the deal for me. And he said, you won't regret it. I promise you won't regret it. And she goes, all right. And so she filled it out, and I got her phone number, and I called her the next day.
Damn.
And I went back down there the next day, and my
And
buddies.
this is before texting?
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah. I had a pager.
How would you get? Because now we just DM, text. Hey, what's up? Like, love to grab a drink. If you're open to it, girls are interested. They'll be like, yeah, I'd love to. But like, how did you guys do it back then? Like, you're like calling.
I called.
Like,
you called
from a payphone, like a home phone.
payphone.
They don't even know who's calling.
Phone. You had home
Who
phones.
the fuck is calling? There's not even caller ID, right?
Yeah, you had home phones. I was one of the ones early on that had a transportable phone.
Car phone. You had the big,
it's like a car phone, but it has
it
has a handle on it. You can bring it wherever you want. It's called transportable.
Okay.
I was one. Back then it was like drug dealers had.
And that was kind of a flex, right?
It was.
You'd be like, oh, like you're flexing on them with the big tricks.
It was. I needed it for business, but So anyway, I called her, and if they weren't there, you leave a message on the answering machine. That's how you did it.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we connected. She said, "Why don't you come back down to the bar?" I went down the next night, and all my boys disappeared on me. I didn't have a ride home. And this is an Uber, like it wasn't like you could just. I'm like, I need a ride home. And so she gave me a ride home, and she said she told her friend that night that she was going to bury me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn. So what was the first date?
First date, I picked her up. I had a raised Jimmy, so this is like a Blazer, with the top off of it. Okay. It was like a 7-inch lift on it. It was a big truck, very big truck. And I went on a double date with my buddy and with her friend. And I had a whole itinerary planned out.
Damn,
picked her up.
The young Brad had some game.
Oh, we had some game. So I picked her up, and I was going to take her to this pool hall.
Okay.
And then we were going to go play basketball. I told her to bring tennis shoes. I didn't tell her why. I said, bring some tennis shoes. And we went down the pool hall and, played some pool, whatever, just kind of got to know each other a bit, and then never made it to basketball. So that was the first date.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well,
actually, you know what? Before that, we did go to Cheesecake Factory and have dinner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Laura's an amazing woman, and you did good with that one.
Yeah. Thanks, buddy.
I love that.
That's my girl.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's a hell of a story.
We have a great relationship.
How many years married?
Married for 31 years.
31 years. Congrats, man. Shout out to Laura.
I'm that 76-year-old that looks like a 56-year-old. So, all right. So let's go back.
You barely look 41.
Oh, well, thank you, man. But your eyes have never been so good. So I want to know, is it true what they say that your mom is Suzanne Summers?
No, that's not true.
All right. Nobody says that.
Yeah.
I just said it.
That's funny.
But I do know that you did a post back in 2020, and your mom was going through cancer.
Yes.
And we have that in common. My mom was going through cancer in 2008 when the crash happened. So very similar. Obviously, that was during COVID. I want to talk about that for a minute because it's something we don't talk about.
Yes, do
right?
it.
I was going through, just to kind of lead into this, in 2007, I had to shut down my mortgage company, very big mortgage company. It was extremely stressful. I had corporate property. I had hundreds of employees. And without getting into the details of what happened, I was forced to close overnight. And this was on the heels of I was about to sell the company for generational wealth. And so it was a big change. And at the same time, my mom had stage 4 breast cancer. And we were like, this may be it. So my mom went under chemo treatment. I shaved my head in solidarity with her. And during this stressful time when I'm dealing with FBI stuff and shutting down my company, it was the most stressful time of my entire life. I remember for the first time seeing gray hair, like the stress was causing the gray. And I was lucky. My mom had a really positive attitude and started to eat well, did her chemo, and she's still alive today. And so,
Shout out to your mom. Dude.
yeah,
What's
totally.
her name?
Diana.
Shout out to Diana.
Yeah,
I love that.
She's still alive, and she's an awesome person. And we almost lost her. That was, almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, cancer is a crazy thing, man. And unfortunately, women, I think breast cancer is a very prevalent thing amongst females, especially like it runs in your family. And what I didn't realize is a woman could get it at such a late age. My mom was like in her mid 70s when she got it.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that was. I always thought it was something for women that are in their 40s, maybe 50s. But my mom
was in her 60s.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Scary thing.
So how did she tell you about it, and how did you take that?
I'd say if you're considering joining the AmeriFund team, it's a really good idea.
We as processors at AmeriFund Home Loans support the loan officers in every aspect of the loan once it comes into processing because we want them out there marketing themselves and originating more loans and supporting more borrowers.
Competitive commission plans are a given, and powerful technology is expected, but what truly sets us apart is our culture. We've built a solid support system for our loan officers.
If you're interested in joining the AmeriFund team, go to amerifund.com/careers.
Yeah. I was doing dinner with my family, as my sister, brother-in-law, mom and dad.
Was this where you learned about it?
No, it's not.
Okay.
This is after finishing her final session. So this is after she was like finished. Yeah. So no, I learned about it well before this.
Okay.
And anyhow, so they came down for dinner, and then that's when she broke it to me. Yeah. And I remember it hit me pretty hard. I was like, "Holy fuck! Like that's crazy." And it definitely made me see life through a different lens, different perspective. I've never lost a parent yet, but I can only fucking imagine. That gave me a little taste of what that's like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how did you deal with that emotionally? Because I know for me, it was. I mean, I would lay in bed at night and just imagine like the future without my mom. Like I would it just weighed heavy on me for some time. Always very positive when I was with her, but I remember just being like, "Fuck, I may not have much more time with my mom." And I would lay there and I would almost tear up just thinking about it, and have a hard time going to sleep. And that happened for several months before she came out of chemo, and they said, "Hey, we did we got what we think we got it, and we're going to keep testing you." And then over time, as they kept testing her, and they still do. Once you had cancer, they test a couple times a year. But I just remember having the toughest time with it.
Same here. Like I would do. First of all, I'll do anything for my mom. She is like the sweetest, tiny little Asian lady who grew up in Taiwan. Came from very, very humble beginnings. Like she didn't have anything, and literally like family of 12, living in a fucking 2-bedroom apartment in the middle of Taipei. They were very, very like just basically like almost poverty.
Yeah.
And so to see her grow up through all that, she was actually born for the first couple of years. She was born in like 43. So the first couple of years of her existence, it was like in a POW camp because it was like the tail end of World War II. So she's seen some fucking crazy shit. And so to see my mom at the age of, and she would do anything for me. Like she fucking like loves the shit out of me, and she would do anything for me. And so when I got that news, like I definitely teared up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your dad met her overseas then?
He did. Yeah.
Okay.
My dad
Like
was
military?
my dad was in the Air Force as a pilot,
Yeah.
and so he was stationed overseas. Met my mom in a nightclub. And he kind of did similar thing to what
You
you
like
did to
this
Laura.
nightclub thing.
Yeah, he
It's
kind
a
of did
theme
similar
here.
thing to that way you did to Laura, and he kind of played like the whole like, hey, I'm new to the area.
Oh, there's no way he
would
did
love-
the hangman thing. There's no way.
No, he
That's
didn't do
patented.
that. He didn't do that.
Yeah.
He didn't do that. But he rolled up, and I think he was like, hey, I'm new to the area, and my mom was like, yeah, I'm gonna take my girlfriend out tomorrow, a little sightseeing. You're welcome to join, and that's kind of how it happened.
Dude, isn't that crazy to think about? Just that had to happen. Your mom had to fall in love with your dad.
Mm-hmm.
He had to take her from Taiwan, and then have you. Like, do you have any siblings?
I do have one older sister. She's 18 years older. Her name's Laura as well, and she's great. Yeah, she's great.
Okay.
But because she's so much older, I kind of feel like I was an only child because my sister was so much
She was
older.
out of the house.
She did raise me for them. Like my parents were not around as I spent a lot of time with my sister growing up.
Yeah.
So I almost look at my sister as like a motherly figure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your dad's still around too. And I don't know. Is that him in the picture there?
That is
on the
my
right?
dad. Yeah. My
And
my,
then
my
and then
parents are
there's your
80,
dad there.
82 and 81.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's your dad there.
Yeah.
And you took him out sailing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Has he been on your new boat?
Yeah, he has one time. He has
Okay.
one time. Brought him out, invited the family, but he was the only one that showed up. So apparently my mom doesn't care too much about the
Oh,
boat.
come on. She was busy that day. All right. So let's talk about your tattoos.
Okay.
So what was it, about 6 months ago you did the neck?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, approximately. You've got tattoos down your arms. I have never seen you without a shirt on, so I don't know what that looks like, but I think you probably have a lot front, back.
Not my back. Yeah, my neck tattoo kind of goes a little bit down the back, but
Okay.
my back for the most part has not been done. I want to do that next.
So here's what I'm very curious, because I have one. I have one on my shoulder.
Yeah.
And that was it. That's the only one I've done, and I was actually allergic to the red ink in it.
Yeah,
And for
interesting.
a year and a half, I had the deepest itch, like where you can't scratch to get to it. It's like underneath your skin. And I saw dermatologists and doctors, and nothing worked on it. And they just said, you're allergic to that ink. And I guess it's not that uncommon for colored ink. And I was like, I'm never doing that again. So curious when you started this,
Yeah.
and what's the plan?
Yeah, first tattoo was when I was 18. It's right here on my left shoulder. It says 949. It was the area code of where I grew up. So maybe one day I can tell my kids, like, hey, we used to pick up the phone and dial 949. Or in case I ever forget where I'm from. But, when I first got into real estate, I thought, oh, my God, I got to cover my tattoos up. I got to wear a collared shirt. I can't wear a hat and all this stuff. And what I found over the years is, like, the more I just kind of, like, am authentic to, like, who I am, and the more I'm just organic with storytelling and just let my true personality come out, the more people trust me.
Agreed.
And so I realized, I'm like, fuck, like I can have tattoos, I can wear a hat. And so now I kind of like made it part of my brand. It is a crowded space in the real estate investing world. And I think traditionally a lot of real estate investors are like old white dudes with fucking, college shirts, fucking ties and that sort of thing. And I'm like, I don't know. Someone's wearing a collared shirt and a tie. I'm like, I don't trust that dude, And also, it's like the quickest way to like when there's all these conferences, right? And so when I go and like see these big conferences that are in town in San Diego, like I know who the business owners are.
Yeah.
The fucking business owners are not the ones wearing the fucking
They're rags.
ties and the fucking suits and all that sort of thing. The guys in the suits are fucking working for the business owner, right? And so
Not
anyways,
in every case, but we
not-
know that is
for the most part.
that is prevalent. Yeah.
You're not going to see Elon Musk in a fucking
Three-piece suit,
and a
yeah.
necktie. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? But anyways, that said, I didn't get any tattoos for a long time, probably like 10 years. And 6 months ago, I was like, okay, like I'm gonna start getting some more work done. So I started getting some stuff done, like redone on my arms, and then I did the neck. And starting in like a month or so, once the weather kind of cools down a little bit, I'm gonna start getting some more work done, get my legs done and my back. But I'm not gonna be like bodysuit. I don't ever want to be like bodysuit. I just always want it to look like clean and like nice.
That's
what
what I was curious. Like, are you going to let it breathe, or are you going to put?
We're always gonna let it breathe, and we're always gonna let it warm up. Yeah.
I mean, some space, some space. You're not going to be completely color. So, look, yeah, I think what you said is absolutely true. Today, people don't pay attention to tattoos like that anymore.
No.
It did used to be that way. It did used to be that way, where you even if you had sleeves, you would make sure that they were covered by your long sleeve shirt. But things have changed, and people are more authentic to themselves. But there's also still this thing, like my brother gets all sorts of tattoos on himself, and I'm constantly seeing him. He lives in Nicaragua, so he can get tattoos for like pennies. But it's still, it's a process. It hurts. And it's a commitment, especially for somebody who loves to be in the water. It's a super commitment.
The neck one was probably the most painful thing I've ever experienced. And it's funny because I thought, and the artist told me, she's like, hey, we'll be done. She's like, come into my office at 5 p.m. And she's like, we'll be done by like midnight, maybe 1 o'clock at the latest. And I had gone into her office like the night before, and we had like spent hours together kind of mapping out what we're going to do. And so I go in there 5 p.m. on a fucking Tuesday night and get in the chair. And literally, I think I'm going to be out of there at midnight. I got 3 podcast guests flying into town the very next day.
Oh, wow.
And so we're ripping, and we do the front part first. And, nowadays I got like numbing cream and numbing spray. Like 10, 15 years ago when I used to do like a lot of my other work, like they didn't have that stuff. And so anyhow, we're getting through it, and it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and she's just finishing up the front end. And like the pain is starting to set in with the neck tattoo. Like no matter how much numbing cream and spray you use, like it still fucking hurts.
I bet.
Yeah, it feels like a fucking knife cutting into your throat. And so it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I remember her saying, "Hey, do you want to come back and finish it another time, or do you want to like just push through?" And I'm thinking like, I don't want to do this twice. Like it's already so much fucking pain. I'm like, I'm not doing this twice. So I'm like, let's push through. I ended up walking out of her tattoo office at 6:15 in the morning. The sun was already up. I had felt like I had like walked out of a nightclub. The sun was up. I had been up all night, and it was like 12 hours of the most excruciating pain I've ever felt. And I had 3 podcast guests that day. So normally when you get a new tattoo like that, they'll wrap you up.
Yep.
Yeah. And it kind of protects it, right? It protects
from infection.
Infection, protects it from all sorts of stuff. It makes it a little bit more comfortable too. And I remember I was like, well, I got 3 podcast guests today, so like I can't, I'm not going to get wrapped up. So I just raw dogged it. And I remember I went home and I hadn't slept all night.
Wait,
we're
going to have to look that up. Raw dog?
Yeah.
Is there a definition? How do you spell that? R-A-W?
R-A-W-D-O-G. Do raw dog tattoo.
Tattoo.
Yeah. Do raw dog tattoo healing. Tattoo healing. Yeah.
All right.
I don't recommend it.
I don't see a definition up here.
Yeah.
But we're gonna have to go deeper on that because these are things we need to know.
Yeah, maybe it's just slang. So, anyways,
raw dogged it.
yeah.
Okay.
So if you don't wrap a tattoo, it's called raw dogging it.
Okay.
So, anyways, I walk out of there at 6:15 in the morning. I go home, and I remember texting Lauren, my assistant. I'm like, hey, Lauren. I just got to the fucking tattoo shop. I'm going to take a little nap. And I was like, I'll be in the office like 10:30. First guest was showing up at 11. I had 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and a 3 o'clock.
Oh, my goodness.
On Wednesdays, you have guests flying into town. Like you can't cancel.
Yeah.
And that's why I always say, like, put yourself in situations where the hard way is the only way. Or put yourself in situations where like the content has to happen, right? So it's like you got podcast guests flying into town, like I don't care how the fuck you feel, like you're showing up, you got to fucking deliver, right? And so I text Lauren, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna take a little nap. But what you don't realize with the neck tattoo until after you do it is like everything you fucking do is like turning your neck.
Oh yeah.
Right? And so it's always stretching that skin. And so I'm like, I get home, it's like fucking, by this time it's like 7 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like bleeding out, there's ink everywhere, and I'm just like in a lot of pain. And so shit's all swollen, right? And so I'm like, I can't even sleep in my bed because I'm going to like fucking ruin my pillows, right? So I literally grabbed a pillow. I remember turning my fireplace on in the living room, grabbed my pillow. I put a fucking towel down on the pillow, grabbed a blanket, and I just like took a little nap there. But it's like so uncomfortable. You can't turn your neck. You're just like I just remember laying like this, like in a straitjacket, like literally closed my eyes for like 2 hours. Then I went down to the office and ripped fucking 3 podcasts. I was hosting a fucking a mastermind dinner that night at Coco Maya.
Wow.
And got through it. But,
Dude, you described this, and I'm sitting here going, why the fuck would you want to do that again?
Yeah.
It's painful.
Here's the other thing with neck tattoos. They take a long time to heal because everything you're doing is like turning your neck. You're stretching the skin every time you turn your head. So it took like probably 3 weeks to heal. And so I was wearing turtlenecks. I was doing everything to kind of like keep it a little bit concealed. But,
all right, but you plan to do more.
Hey, now it is what it is.
You plan to do more.
Everything's easy in hindsight.
All right. So I want to.
We're just getting warmed up.
You are just getting warmed up.
Let me text Mikey, and I'm gonna tell him, yo, Mikey, I'm running a little bit late with Brad, but I'll be there closer to 11:30 ish. But take your time. We can rip.
Okay, good.
We can rip.
Yeah, we're not stopping yet.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about you being a big brother.
Yep.
Because I think that is very cool, and I realize that people don't know what that is. My assistant didn't know what it was when we were putting together the show notes here. And so I want to talk about that because you've had a huge impact on your little brother's life, Isaac.
Yeah.
So can you start by saying what is the Big Brother program and then how you got involved in that?
Yeah. Big Brothers Big Sisters of America is a nonprofit program meant for kids that don't have parents, or they're missing one of their parents. Most often, it's a fatherly figure that's not around, and see there's a lot of young kids, and so every big market has the Big Brothers Big Sisters program, and San Diego has one, right? And so there's kids from age 6 to age 16 that can get signed up, and so often it's the father that's not around, so the mother will sign up the kid. The kids get on a list, and sadly, there's a big wait list.
Yeah.
Nationally, there's a huge wait list of kids that are looking to be matched with a big brother or a big sister. There's just not enough people that volunteer for it, and so you as a volunteer. So I volunteered back in 2019, and I got matched with Isaac. He was 9 at the time. Father has not been in the picture for quite some time. At the time, he was living in a 1-bedroom apartment with his mom, his sister, and a abusive boyfriend. And kind of crazy. So him and his sister lived in the 1-bedroom, and then the mom and the abusive boyfriend would live in the living room. And that's how I got matched. So anyways, hang out with him once a month. We'll hang out for 4 hours. I'll take him to Padre games. We'll go to we'll go play basketball. We'll go on hikes and that sort of thing, and just try to instill some good principles into his life that maybe he doesn't get normally.
Well, I am certain that you've had a tremendous positive impact on his life, as you do with everybody that you meet. But there's a photo of you in December 2019. I imagine that was very close to when you guys
he looks so
got
little
together.
There. He looks so little there. Now he's as tall as me.
Yeah, I saw a recent picture too. But I wanted to bring that up because we need more good people like you out there that are doing things like this, and awareness is half the battle. And so if somebody's out there that is living a good life and feels it can bring value to somebody young and really impact them and change where they may end up in life without that kind of positive influence, they should look into this program.
Yeah, it's an awesome program, and it's kind of fun. Like, it kind of brings the kid out of you. Like, I want to have 4 kids, and I like going and like doing fun stuff with them. So
you want to have 4 kids?
Oh yeah, maybe 6.
Mikey Taylor's really rubbing off on you.
I know, right? What does he have?
He's
3?
4 going on 5.
Oh, he has 4. Okay.
Yeah. And when you say going on 5, he says, pray for me. So that's a lot. All right. Moving on. So let's talk about social media. Mm-hmm. You did your first post in 2018. We got that up here somewhere. Let's see. 2018. There it is. That's your very first post on Instagram. And who are you with there? You're with Marcus Allen, right?
Marcus Allen, the football player.
Yep. And this is before you decided to really kind of go in on social media. Mm-hmm. You've got you're around 200,000 followers now on Instagram. And it's not even the number of followers. These are like people that are very interested in what you do. Like you can have millions of followers and they can just be following you for whatever reason, but
Mm.
you've got a really great community of followers. But you posted this, right?
Mm.
And then did you know that that was your first post? Like,
So that was not my first post. I had other posts that were before
Okay.
that I went back and archived.
okay.
Yeah.
Of just like personal stuff from before
Personal stuff. And then as I like kind of started like taking social media seriously, I went back to some of my old posts and I was like, I removed anything that was no longer relevant.
that. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe it wasn't your first, but your first toward what you're doing now, which is really building a social media presence. We've talked about this. I want to talk a little bit about it. This is
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a
something that
brand.
feeds your brand feeds your businesses. It's
Yeah.
how we met.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get to that, what's been your most viral content?
I would probably have to say I don't know which one would be like in terms of views like has gone like the most like viral, but I would say when I do whiteboard videos and talk about LLCs, the first one that really popped off was an LLC video that I did via whiteboard, and I was talking about how all the LLCs that we have with the real estate and how you can protect your real estate from a liability perspective through LLCs. And that was the first one that really popped off, and that got me my first injection of like maybe 10,000 followers from that one reel.
Okay.
And then that's what ultimately gave me the confidence to like, okay, like I can be a content creator. People actually do give a fuck.
So how long ago was that?
That
post?
was I didn't take social media seriously until May of 2022.
Okay.
And that post was like October of 2022.
Okay.
So exactly 2 years ago.
That is 2 years ago. How many followers did you have prior to that post?
When I started posting in May of 2022, I had 4,000 followers. Most of these folks were people I knew from college or my friend circle. And I remember the first like 3 months I started posting on Instagram, I started losing followers because a lot of people that I know me from high school and college, like they didn't want to see the real estate content.
Yeah.
And so I remember being a little bit discouraging, but I kept pushing through. And like everything in life, we figure it out as long as we don't give up. And I just focused on getting 1% better with every post.
And so you were just finding a few people subscribe to you or follow you after May as you were posting, but then this one post really was the big boost. And the reason
That
I
was the
bring
boost,
that
yeah,
up is
yeah.
that people do get discouraged, right?
They
and
do.
then they give up on it.
They do.
But it really just takes that one post to propel you to the next phase, right?
It does. It's just one post, and that's why I always say like, hey, just focus on like one post because all it takes is one to go, and then you get your first injection of 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 followers, and now it's a lot easier from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Your daughter knows. She's got a
She
massive
does
audience.
now. Yeah, she does.
Massive audience.
Yeah. And very engaged audience. She posts, and there's
Yeah.
usually 40, 50, 60,000, likes and tons of comments and all that. But what really, I think, changed from the outside looking in, what really changed the ability for you to convert your followers to business was a podcast.
Yes.
Now, you started a podcast with partners called the Multifamily Takeoff, and then at one point decided, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore with you guys. I'm going to do my own thing. And that's when you came up with the Rich Somers Report, which, like we talked about earlier, has been ranked number one in business podcasts for some time. And you've had big people on there, and that's contributed to your communities that you've built. And so can you explain to people how building a personal brand has really helped your real estate ventures so that they can get an idea of what that's like? And then we'll talk about the 7-figure creator.
Yeah, I mean, personal brand is the most valuable thing that you could build for yourself in 2024 and beyond. I think currency the new currency is eyeball money and getting attention and getting views. Everyone wants to follow a personality, someone they can relate to, someone that's authentic. People don't want to follow these company brands, right? It's the same reason you see companies like Louis Vuitton partnering with folks like LeBron James and that sort of thing. And so it is the most valuable thing. We got 4.8 billion people on social media today. That number is going to increase. But podcasting right now is a massive thing. We got over 500 million podcast listeners worldwide now. I mean, think about that. There's only population in the U.S. is about 328 million. 500 million people worldwide are listening to podcasts on a weekly basis right now. That number is doubling every 5 years.
How many podcasts are there out there that are still active? Do you know that number?
That are still active?
Meaning,
Ooh.
we know we know the statistics are that there's the vast majority of podcasts never make it past 12 episodes, right?
Yep.
And so I'm curious how many are active, meaning they're posting at least once a month.
I don't know, but I'm sure we could probably look it up
Maybe
here.
we should look that up.
But yeah, I mean, it's honestly like it's the new age stuff, and that's why like with press, like we're together now. She moved in, and she's like, hey, like, should I go get like a bartending job? I'm like, no, like let's go all in on the brand and the content, and it's the most valuable thing that you could do. What do you got there?
It says 4 million active, but we'll probably have to drill into that a little bit
4
more.
million active podcasts?
That may not be like that have posted within the last month or whatever.
So think about that, 500 million listeners.
Yeah, 500 million to 4 million. That's a pretty good ratio. So 504 million listeners to 4 million
Yeah,
podcasts.
that's about is that 1 to 100?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's aligned with what you see on social media. So 99% of people on social media consume, 1% create. So just by you creating content on the daily, like already puts you in the top 1%.
That's right.
And I mean, think about the ability, like the old method to go out there and do business would be to go out and have dinner, lunch meetings, coffee dates, and that sort of thing, and shake hands one handshake at a time or one lunch date at a time.
That's right.
And now we have the ability to tee up a 30-second or a 60-second, TikTok or Instagram reel, and you could tee this thing up, and this could easily go out to 20,000, 50,000, a million people.
Even if it doesn't
think about
do that.
Think about that input to output and the
it's,
leverage.
It's tremendous, but I want to talk to the masses for a minute.
Yeah.
Because even if it doesn't do that, doesn't hit 5, 10, 15, 20, 40,000, and it hits 300 people.
Yeah.
It's still 300 people. You do that every single day or multiple times a day.
Yes. Think about speaking. Like when I go speak at these conferences and stuff, like I'm usually speaking in front of like 200 people.
Right.
Maybe 300 people on a good day. And so, you hear a lot of people like complain about the algorithm or they think their content sucks because they only got 400 views. I'm like, imagine speaking to 400 people at a fucking conference. Like,
2 times a day.
That's a big ass fucking
That's
stage.
right. That's a huge lift.
Yeah. And so people complain about 400 views. I'm like, dude, it doesn't make sense to me. I'm like, that's a fucking nice.
But this has been
leverage.
something that has fed, for the last couple of years, you're building your brand and that sort of thing has fed your businesses. And you told me 95% of the investors in your fund came from your podcast.
95% came from the podcast.
That's crazy.
You're one of them.
I am one of them.
And the reason is it's hard to build trust through a 30-second TikTok or a 45-second Instagram reel. But if you can get people to go and listen to your podcast, and now they're listening to you while they drive to work, while they go to the gym, and it builds a lot of trust. But also, if you look at the different platforms out there, you got TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Threads, YouTube, and you got the podcast platform, which is like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Out of all those platforms out there, your podcast audience is going to be your most sophisticated, your most intelligent. They're going to have the highest net worth, and they're action takers. And that's why it converts over to clients, investors, and that sort of thing. And it makes sense, right? These people are listening to you while they're like going to work, while they're at the gym. They're trying to improve their lives. They're trying to better their lives. They're trying to gain knowledge. And people that are just scrolling TikTok videos, nothing against those folks, but they're just trying to like consume time and waste time. They're not trying to better their lives for the most part.
Very true. That's a really, really good point. So you decided to start this community called the 7-Figure Creator Mastermind. And you posted it on one of your stories.
Yeah.
I saw it. I was already an investor in your fund, but I saw the post and I said, damn, I've waited too long. I need to do this. And I joined, right? And just this last weekend, we had a summit where you invited both your masterminds, your boutique hotel mastermind. We talked about that earlier. So you have people that are in the real estate space that want to learn how to buy boutique hotels. You have that mastermind. And you put us together and you had a summit. And it was electric. And the people were fantastic. What a community of people, of like-minded, forward-thinking, just really positive people. So that's something that really came from you building community.
Yeah.
That's it. And
the best fucking people in the world. And like every day, I am so inspired and humbled by all the amazing people in these communities. And you nailed it. Like it's about this game is about getting in the right rooms. And I wish I had these type of rooms when I started.
Yeah.
And a lot of folks 20 years ago, 30 years ago, like these masterminds did not exist.
No, they didn't.
And a lot of folks back then, like you had to go out there and like earn your stripes. And now you get in these communities, and it forces you to think bigger, and it really shortcuts the path from point A to point B because you eliminate a lot of the mistakes that others have already made. Yeah,
it does.
Yeah,
you follow the blueprint.
Yeah.
Right,
dude.
And
What
it really is about that.
What you've done here is phenomenal. I mean, look at this, and you are like the definition of just like action taker.
Well, the thing is, like
you came in and you're like, hey, like fuck the bullshit. Like I'm gonna do this the right way, and you know build out the studio. You hired Micah. You got all the best equipment, and like you're treating it like a real business, and like that's how you got to do it.
It is, but when you do that and you make that commitment, and then you put time, energy, and money behind it. You're going to execute on it. And so it's a commitment to yourself to do it. But the point is that you had the blueprint, because I've seen what you've done in a short period of time, less than 2 years. You built this community. These people pay money to be part of the community happily because they're getting giant value out of it. And it all started from you making that commitment that you're going to go in on socials, build your podcast and that sort of thing. And everybody starts from zero. Everybody does, right?
Yes.
And the first time you're nervous, you're not that good at it. You look back at it. I just saw at an annual mortgage event, one of the speakers there went and showed one of his first posts, and he goes, I was terrible. And he shows it. He goes, I was so nervous. I couldn't talk. And it's about the reps. We talked about that. So speaking about that, you also built a community around a networking event. And I think that's the first post you did for Beers and Deals.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. And so you have the biggest...
Look at that, 2019, 5 years ago.
5 years ago.
Yeah.
And it happens how often?
We do it monthly. And we've been doing it monthly for 5 years now. And basically like started doing this thing before I even owned any real estate. But this particular one is a holiday kind of like meetup. And so we typically do something special during the holidays. One of my buddies, shout out to Seth. Seth had a listing. He's a real estate agent, but he had this listing. And so he's like, hey, if you guys want to throw a banger meetup at this freaking mansion listing that I have in La Jolla overlooking the water, he's like, you guys can use my property. And so that's where we did it. And it was a sick property. Yeah. That was the first holiday one. We had been doing this meetup for a little bit before this, but I think this is the first time I actually like started plugging it.
Okay. There's the first one I saw on your socials.
Yeah.
And
real quick, this is important because I hear so many fucking people say like, oh, like, you know, you got a team and like, you guys host all these events and meetups and you gotta have this podcast, but you got this amazing team. And that's the only reason why I don't have the resources that you do. But if you look at this fucking thing, I created that fucking Canva. I created that post. I was doing all the marketing. I was doing the emails. I was doing the check-in list. I was putting all the fucking names and emails into that MailChimp list. I did all that early on. All that shit.
No excuses.
And I was working a full-time air traffic control career and doing this shit on the side. So for the people that say they don't have the time, that's fucking bullshit.
No,
everyone has the same
have
24 hours in a
right.
day. You just don't want it fucking bad enough.
Yeah. And there's proof.
Yeah.
You know, and granted, look, that post is not as good as your current post, like from a visual perspective,
it's not.
But it performed the same way.
It's not. Yeah, it did.
So anyway, what I want to kind of conclude with here is you've done some absolutely amazing things. Your boutique hotel investment concept is fantastic. I'm a big believer in that. I'm a big believer in real estate to begin with. But just to give everybody kind of some perspective here, when you're investing in a fund like this, not only do you get a preferred rate of return, so you get kind of at least a guarantee, a floor.
Investors get paid first.
They get paid first. You get the opportunity to recapitalize. So in this model where you're buying property, you're fixing it up, you're increasing the value. You can pull the initial money back off the table, give it back to the investors so they're playing with house money, and then continue to build it and then have an exit. And the exit can be 2x, it can be 3x, it could be more than that. But you basically have a trifecta. And along the way, you get the tax benefits. So what other investments besides real estate give you that opportunity? And you don't, with a fund like this, when you've got somebody like Rich and his team running it, you don't have to know it yourself. If you've got a little bit of money and you want to diversify, you don't want to be in that 401k that's just earning your, measly 6% a year or average, or you hit a crash and you lose it all and have to wait for it to come back, here's a way to do it.